Welcome back to my Alien series. Today we're talking about Alien 3, also known as Alien Cubed. This was directed by David Fincher, who has since become pretty famous as a pretty fantastic director.
Yeah.
This was his first big studio film. This is my buddy, Matt Brando. I think you guys probably know who he is. He's been on my channel a few times. He does really good in-depth analysis of movies. I think you and I have slightly differing opinions on Alien 3.
Maybe.
In fact, I know you do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first off, let's talk about how this movie came together initially.
Okay.
David Fincher, like his backstory, his history, he came mostly from music videos.
Right.
He had done stuff with Madonna. He did one for Michael Jackson as well for the song Who Is It? And he made some of the best music videos at the time. He was getting really famous. If you do like research, obviously I was pretty young during this time period, but I've done a lot of research, so have you, about this time period. And he eventually, of course, got offered to direct Alien 3, which I think anybody who wants to break into the industry, that's like, oh my God, you know, this is following two incredibly good science fiction movies. The first teaser for Alien 3 kind of is a bit of a bad omen for what went on with the entire production in regards to how much studio interference was going on, because the teaser says this.
In 1992, we will discover on Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
And I think both you and I know that the movie doesn't take place on Earth, but that got people excited at the time. And I think that really goes to show you just how much studio interference was going on with this movie, how many cooks there were in the kitchen. And we're going to get into that. But overall, Alien 3 for you, what has been your experience with this movie in regards to how it's impacted you and what you take away from it?
I'm actually glad you asked this question because when I was 17 or 16, I watched all the Alien films in a row, including Resurrection. And I remember liking and was scared of Aliens so much. And I loved Aliens. And then when I got to Alien 3, I actually didn't like it when I was like 17 or so. I hated the cinematography and the directing of the low-angle shots. I thought it was ugly. And overall, I didn't like the film. But then something happened in college where I didn't watch the theatrical. I got a hold of the Anthology Blu-ray set. And I watched the assembly cut. And something clicked. And I was like, holy shit, this movie's fucking beautiful. I love the story. I love the cinematography, everything about it. And it became like my favorite of all the Alien films.
This is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this video with you, is because you have such an affinity for this movie, an affinity that I don't have. I don't love Alien 3. I don't hate it either. I think some people really go overboard with hating this movie.
They really do.
It's a mixed bag for myself. I don't view it as this atrocity that some people do, but there are so many great ideas that I see that don't feel like they were explored as fully as they could have because of all different types of things that were going on with this movie. Fincher himself has been very careful about how he talks about this movie, if he ever talks about this movie, because you can tell his experience with it was very negative. But the other reason I wanted you to be in this video, besides the fact that you're my friend, is because you have an in-depth knowledge of the making of this movie and what led up to it and all of the various ideas they had and things they were trying to do that eventually never happened. It's one of the things you and I talked about with Jaws 3. There were a lot of really cool ideas, and the studio and the people making the movie were just like, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want to get asses in the seats. Tell us a little bit about the making of Alien 3 and what they were trying to do.
Well, before anything, the success of Aliens, Fox is like, we have to make another one. I think you pronounce his name Geiler. Geiler and Hill, the producers for Aliens, they're like, we don't want to do another. Their thing wasn't really sci-fi, so they didn't really want to do one. Fox did. And they attached Ridley to direct it, but he didn't officially sign. And then they hired William Gibson, who is a cyberpunk author, and he wrote the Anchor Point script. It stars Hicks and Bishop. They're the main two players. They go to Anchor Point, which is this like lively space station. There's a lot of things going on. There are some like Earth-like elements, like a mall, which is actually really cool. But they're secretly having a science shit going on where they're breeding xenomorphs.
Of course.
And they make a xeno-human hybrid.
Oh boy.
And one of them turns into a five-field actually type deal. So there's
like
some elements. Yeah. But the fucked up thing is they have Anchor Point, but because it's in the 80s, there's also the Union of Progressive Peoples, the USSR. And
my God.
And at the end, Hicks takes like a bunch of young Marines to fight off the xenomorphs. There is something really cool though. There's like a fucking shot of like Bishop with like a fucking machine gun just mowing them down with no emotion on his face.
Oh, wow.
So it actually looks kind of cool. Actually, I written my notes. I want to see that on a poster. Someone should make that art.
Yeah.
But besides that, the fucking USSR people come and rescue them in like an interceptor, and they go off. And then Bishop says to Hicks, because it was supposed to be written as a fourth movie too. Because what happens is our main two guys are Bishop and Hicks. So what happens to Newt and Ripley? Newt is shipped off, jettisoned to Earth to her grandparents. Mm-hmm. And then, because Sigourney Weaver, this is the thing, like Sigourney Weaver, she's like, she doesn't want to do them, or like she'll have like a really high amount of input on them and they'll be scrapped. She didn't want to do it for the Gibson script. So Gibson wrote her off completely. She's in a coma the whole time. And then Hicks eventually, like I think halfway through the film, ships her off to Earth, and so there'll be a fourth film where the UPP and Bishop says this: the UPP and the colonial administration must come together to defeat the xenomorphs. Or you could just watch Rocky 4. It's the same message.
Yeah, right. If you could change, everybody could change.
Exactly. That's what fucking happens.
Except with xenomorphs.
My God.
Now, do you think that direction with the idea of Ripley being shipped off and focusing on Bishop and Hicks would have improved the idea of what we eventually got? Or do you think that it's just kind of like a cool idea that they just didn't go for because they didn't think enough people would see it without Ripley?
I'd rather see what we got. And a lot of people actually like that idea and think it's actually like the best one that they didn't make, which I don't really agree.
I think a lot of that comes from the fact that right from the get-go of this movie, they kill off Newt and Hicks.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were very iffy about that because the way they set up those characters in Aliens was kind of like this little ragtag family almost that was being created, especially towards the end where she's like, "Mommy!" and they hug.
Yeah.
I don't really like that line, by the way. I love Aliens, but that line's stupid because she had parents. She wouldn't just forget about them. Anyway, side point. I think a lot of people wanted to see those characters. We'll get into why I don't necessarily agree with that in a minute. But what else do you have in regards to what they were going for and trying to make?
But really quick, they had like a lot of big action in that Gibson script, but they had to dial it down because I'm going to talk about the budget of Alien 3 and stuff. But there was actually a lot of action in there with the Hicks and the Marines and shit. But they had to scale that down. Fox didn't have the money, so they scaled it down for the second draft for Gibson for only 3 aliens. And it wasn't as good, but that was the first idea. And then Rennie Harlan is brought in to direct, who just came off of Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Actually, this is even worse than the Gibson script. He told Fox to hire his buddy Eric Red to write a screenplay. And this one is even worse. This is probably the worst fucking thing I've heard of in my life. Okay. So we don't have Ripley, we don't have Hicks, we don't have Newt, we don't have Bishop. It is told through the eyes of Sam Smith, a Marine. I'm just picturing like Sam Worthington in Avatar.
You know, that's exactly this is like a typical, like stereotypical grunt type guy.
Yeah, grunt. Yeah, exactly. And it's almost the same thing as Anchor Point, but think of like 2 different levels. First one is like this Middle America end of Interstellar type deal. And below that is the little substation, space station where they're breeding xenomorphs. Same shit happens.
Okay.
But in the climax, the hybrids, like 20 of them, like form together to make this like 50-story fucking alien.
Oh God!
And
that sounds like Power Rangers.
And the most
they just come together to make a giant thing.
Oh yeah. And the most fucked up thing is, Eric's really cool, and he's like, dude, that script was terrible, but I think they had maybe no more than 5 weeks to write that shit. And
oh wow,
he was like, Fox, he said the dumbest and craziest part is Fox almost like fucking made it because
they almost did it.
They're such in a rush to get this movie done.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. That's a horrible idea. When you say these ideas, it almost makes me appreciate the theatrical of Alien 3 more.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, well, at least they went in a semi-normal direction and not a giant, humongous xenomorph army that forms into one big Godzilla xenomorph.
I think you've played the same games I have. It's almost like a boss battle for Arkham Asylum with the big Joker. I hate that. And then I think it was Enter the Matrix. It was the big-ass Agent Smith.
Yes.
That I fucking hated both those. And that's why I pictured. But Rennie hated that too. And he actually had 2 story ideas that he pitched to Fox. The first one was an alien origin story of going to the aliens' planet. And he pitched and pictured them being ants and being on this anthill and how does this work? Fox shut it down, saying nobody wants to see the alien planet. What happens? We get Prometheus.
Everyone wants to see the alien planet.
And, well, yeah, so
This just goes, studios really have no idea what the hell they're doing. They really don't.
Not really.
Sam Raimi, you should put Venom in Spider-Man 3.
So Fox shot that down, and then Rennie had another idea where, I guess you alluded to earlier with the Earth trailer, we have Middle America, and think like a Kansas cornfield.
Okay.
And we have the xenomorphs coming out of the cornfields going towards a farmhouse.
Okay, the second you got aliens in cornfields, you have me. I'm there.
Yeah, he pitched to Fox too, saying just put it on the poster, like it would sell. And
that sounds so cool.
And Fox shut it down. I'm gonna try to get the quote here, saying it's a sci-fi movie. It should take place in outer space. People won't buy it if it comes to Earth. This movie ends up being
Signs.
Yeah,
I mean, which was a gigantic hit. It made like $227 million.
It's almost like classic looking like alien thing you can get besides these designs of these xenomorphs. It's them coming out of the cornfields. And
yeah, that was a gigantic mistake. Wow.
Then David Twohy, I think you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Pitch Black.
Pitch Black, Chronicles of Riddick, wrote a prison space station called Malak Island. Ripley is missing from the script, so it's told through the eyes of a newly arrived prisoner called Styles. The prison is used to breed xenomorphs, test them out against the prisoners.
So the idea of breeding xenomorphs has been maintained in every single draft.
Pretty much so far.
Just like one of them has a giant Power Rangers monster.
And yeah. After this was written, Fox president Joe Roth demanded that Ripley must be in Alien 3 or they're not making an Alien 3. That's problem number one for this movie. Rennie fucking quits, saying it's this same old, and goes on to direct Die Hard 2. So good for him.
Yeah.
Then Vincent Ward was hired. He's from New Zealand, and he did a really great film that debuted at Cannes. And fucking, I think Geiler and Hill saw it, and they're like, oh, we gotta get this guy. He didn't want to do it. He doesn't fucking want to do temple shit. He's artsy-fartsy, as they called him. And he said no. But then Fox was like, do we really want you? You can write your own. He's like, all right. He wrote what's known as the greatest sci-fi movie never made, with a wooden planet, even though it's not officially wooden, it's like steel structure, and there's a bunch of like homoerotic monks. They kind of like each other, but they don't. They kind of keep to their own. And Ripley comes like a star, crashes down just like in Alien 3.
Right.
And she brings a lot of like evil with her, including the devil, which is kind of like the dragon in Alien 3. And just fucking destroys everything. They quarantine her, just like in Alien 3. That was the first script that included Ripley as the sole survivor. No Newt.
Okay.
No Hicks. So, don't blame Fincher.
Right.
Then John Fasano was on board with Ward for the drafts. Gregory Press replaced Fasano. And then Larry Ferguson was brought in to do more monks, but more of like a seven dwarfs type deal where seven of them survive at the end. When Vincent Ward found out that his story was being undermined by Fox, he said, and then fucking quit.
Wow.
He didn't want to be a part of that. And then David Fincher is hired, and then we get our reworked prison concept written by the producers, Hill and Geiler. And so the final shooting script at Sigourney Weaver's command, provided by Hill and Geiler. And that's all the writing. At the end of the day, they spent $13 million and more than 10 writers.
And the movie wasn't even being made yet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's the writing and pre-production.
That's absolute insanity. See, this is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk to you about this movie, because you have this in-depth knowledge of all this stuff, and hearing that actually makes me appreciate the theatrical cut a little bit more. It's funny because what we actually got does disappoint me overall when it comes to the chronology of the Alien movies. This is not my least favorite. We'll talk about Alien Resurrection soon, which...
Good luck with that.
Shit. Alien is such a masterpiece of science fiction horror, and Aliens, to me, is a masterpiece of action. When it came to Alien 3, I like a lot of the things that Fincher tried to do with this movie, because when I watched it recently, and I watched both cuts back to back, when I watched the theatrical first, it felt like Fincher was operating at like 60% capacity. Where when I watch a movie like Seven or Zodiac or Fight Club, I feel like that's Fincher blowing full steam. He's ready. He's there.
Yeah.
His vision is being allowed. Mm-hmm. He's able to do what he wants to do. Uh-huh. When I watch Alien 3, I feel like I'm watching someone who's incredibly restrained. And in various interviews that I have seen from him, which isn't much, he rarely talks about this movie. There was actually one interview I could find where he talks about Alien 3.
If the movie is great, I'm going to get too much credit, and if the movie sucks, I'm going to get too much blame. My first movie, it's fairly well known, was a disaster. I stupidly felt that the people who were financing it had more to lose than I did if it was bad. I sort of allowed myself to be steered into this communal making, and then when the shit hits the fan, all of a sudden everybody scatters and you're the guy standing there going, wait, who's got a suggestion now? So if I'm going to take the blame, if I'm going to take the brunt of it, I'm going to make the decisions.
And you can hear the pain in his voice, that he's just remembering a time period where he had ideas, he had a vision, and his studio was just not letting it happen. And hearing you describe the pre-production process that went on with Alien 3, I can see why probably anyone who wasn't Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, anyone else who came into that movie is fucked.
Oh, yeah.
They're fucked from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's just so many people trying to create a movie with the end product of, let's make some money! And then you have the main star, who was just, for the last one, nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars, which means you've got clout now. You were just nominated for an Oscar. You can now make demands. And as you said, she made demands. And I think it's been historically talked about quite often whenever anyone talks about this movie that she didn't want any guns because she's very anti-gun. She wanted something about maybe a relationship sexually with an alien, which thank God didn't happen. But she did get her no guns wish because we're now put in a place, this prison, where you have all these convicts, these rapists, child molesters, murderers, and they have no guns on this entire installation.
This is a maximum security prison. And you have no weapons of any kind?
First off, I find that very dumb. I guarantee there would be a place for guards to have something, just in case prisoners broke out, some kind of riot. They would need something. But, as you said, you got a star who's like, I don't want to be in the movie unless you had da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Gratefully, somebody somewhere in a suit said, no, you're not going to fuck a xenomorph. But we'll give you the no-gun thing.
Now.
Yeah, for now. But we'll give you the no-gun thing. And so, this is just too many people trying to make a movie, when it really should be a writer and a director.
Yeah, I'd say Rex and Fincher have been great.
They come together, they create an idea, and then actors and the director and the writers and everybody works on it together. This is just a committee. This is just like a conveyor belt of people who are just trying to make a film. And I think that's one of the reasons why it has been so known for being a clusterfuck.
I love Sigourney, but what you just said, I didn't even say it, but the Ferguson script, the Seven Dwarfs thing, she shot it down completely and said that Ripley's dialogue sounded like a pissed off gym instructor or something. And actually that poster behind you, she's beautiful, she looks bald. She's actually wearing a ball cap there because it cost, I think, $20,000.
I read this.
To make that.
I read this.
And if she had to shave her head again, it would cost $40,000. That was a clause in her contract. Yeah. She wouldn't want to shave her head again for the movie.
I remember that.
So all the promo images are with the ball cap, and also one scene, at least for the ending, was reshot. I think when she was climbing up the water pipe shit, and she poured, that was the ball cap. But it was just like you said, too many cooks in the kitchen. Actually, when you said that, that's why I laughed. I just read an interview. Charles Dance. He said that he likes the film and he understood what he got into. He doesn't regret it, but it was a high franchise film and there were too many cooks in the kitchen. So,
From what I understand, there was also an attempt to make this movie considerably more gory than the other two.
Oh yeah.
What's the background story there?
Well, shooting wrapped up in the UK and then they went over and assembled a rough cut in the United States. Fincher came over and did it with Terry Rawlings. And it was like 3 hours long.
Wow.
And it was fucking gory. Like, if you think... And we'll talk about this like later, but I thought, it was tastefully done gore. Like, they kind of cut away right before it's like super gory. Here, no. I have shit here. Okay, so actually a quote from Fincher. I always wanted the film to be more graphically violent. A lot of stuff got cut because of the censors and PAA. So 3 hours long. That is an hour longer than the theatrical, and like 40 minutes longer than the assembly. We have more graphic shots of Hicks and Newt's like fucking impaled and drowned bodies in the little cryo tubes.
Yes.
We have
children death of children, my favorite thing. I'm kidding.
According to the makeup crew, Newt's autopsy was like fucking, you saw everything. You saw like you saw him cutting, you saw him opening up, you saw him like going around inside Clemens.
Wow, so he wanted to make an impression right out the gate.
He wanted to go balls out. And he wanted to show everything. Murphy, originally in the work print too, he's spit at acid spit, like Dilophosaurus in Jurassic Park, and you see like a close up. They put prosthetics on him, like of the damage.
Wow.
That was cut, and then when he goes down into the fan, you see like fucking guts and shit blow, like dismembered body parts.
It was pretty graphic, that the fan shot. It was like
yeah, but that was like even fucking crazier. Clemens' death was even more gory. There's a couple shots in the extras of the anthology where he's got like they made like this effect. They like this blood squirting. They made like a fake dance head, and they have like this blood squirting out of the back.
It's interesting that you bring that up because David Fincher has said that he loved Ridley Scott's Alien, and that he was trying to kind of revert back to that. A little bit more somber, more dark, serious suspense, less action. And there's a long sequence that was completely cut out of Alien where Brett is killed by the alien, like, squeezing his head. And you can see some of this footage on YouTube, and it's really gory. So it's entirely possible that Fincher was maybe just trying to go for some of the things that were actually cut out of the first Alien by having, like, let's do a little bit more gore.
Maybe.
Let's get more back to that. Less fun, more terrifying.
Yeah. But to wrap this up, Gallic's death was more brutal. Like the prisoners find in the nuclear tank, his mutilated body. We see more like of the climactic chase in the tunnels. Dylan finding Troy's mangled body, and then Jude slips on something wet, and it's blood. And Fincher said, what happened with the test screenings, 18-year-old kids in Long Beach, California decided they weren't interested in what happened to Gallic. They weren't interested in what he gave to the movie. People also wanted to see a movie to be shorter because you can play it more times a day. So the whole subplot of Gallic was lost. And he feels it's very important. It certainly answers a lot of critics' questions about my inability to tell a story.
I love that quote. 18-year-old kids in Long Beach,
That's fucking
California.
amazing. It's amazing.
Didn't care.
Well,
that's true, though.
Yeah.
They get together a demographic.
Yeah.
18 to 35 or 18 to 25 in there, and they get all those people in a room and say, what do you think about that? Oh, the child violent scene was very offensive to me. I didn't like the doggy getting killed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, your movie's butchered.
Exactly. Kong Skull Island was good, no problems.
So now that we've talked about what it could have been, let's talk about what we actually got. When Alien 3 opens, you have, once again, Ripley is in cryosleep. The first three movies follow a very similar formula in regards to how they begin and end. They end with her going into cryosleep, and then they start with her waking up from cryosleep, and some shit just happened. Mm-hmm. The first three movies all do that. This one opens, and unfortunately, Newt and Hicks are now dead. Now, if you look at it from Ripley's perspective, she just went to sleep with them, was so happy, and then like that, she woke up and they're dead. So instantly, a lot of people are pissed off. A lot of fans wanted to see those characters back, and we didn't get to see them. Here's my opinion on this. For this film that we got, I'm fine with it. I really am not that guy that's like, oh, well, Hicks should have been in this movie because Hicks is cool. I do think Hicks is cool. I like Hicks. I liked Newt. I liked the family dynamic that was being built there. Mm. I think it could have gone in a really cool direction. But for this movie, I'm fine with it. But I do see how a lot of people really hate that idea. I mean, like you're getting into a movie, you're excited to see the sequel, you get into the theater, and everyone's fucking dead except
great.
for Ripley.
It's fantastic.
But right from the beginning, there's some really awful ADR, like background audio noises, where they show an inside shot of the pod as these guys, and you hear this guy in the background like, it's getting bad, the weather's it's gotta be below 40 soon.
How many? Don't know. 3, maybe 4. Hey, Frank, can we hurry this up? It's gonna be 40 below in 5 minutes.
They changed that up in the assembly a little bit, and it's a lot better. We'll talk about that in the assembly. With the theatrical cut, I see a movie that is fine. I think this movie's okay. I don't hate it. The things that I really dislike about it are its discombobulated tone. The fact that it starts out and you feel like you're watching a movie that is darker. It has slightly more of a fantastical edge to it, especially with the score.
Yeah.
The score is a lot. There's like choir this time around.
A couple times, yeah.
There's like singing in the background. It's more like more fantasy-like than the first two.
Uh-huh.
The first two were more like really bombastic sci-fi scores that were subtle, except for James Horner's, really loud action music in Aliens. But here the score is more like grand and operatic. And where normally I would like that, I think it actually did the movie a disservice, because I love how Ridley Scott's Alien is so subtle. And I'm sure he actually cut a lot of Jerry Goldsmith's music out of Alien completely.
Yeah, it's weird listening to that soundtrack. You're like, what the fuck's this?
You're like, where's this music from? I sometimes agree with him on that choice. I sometimes don't. When it comes to Alien 3, I found the music to be rather abrasive. And I know a lot of people like it, but I don't.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. I like some of the choir. It wasn't too much choir. I think the post-coital Ripley and Clemens is so beautiful just because of that piece of music. And in my opinion, the second great, maybe the first greatest speech, but from Any Given Sunday, the Inches speech from Pacino, you are on your feet, like your fucking knees. And like the music, it just fucking makes it. And I think it might be my favorite of the three.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't feel that way.
I fucking love that. There's an extended, I don't own it, will buy that. So, because there's music included even when Ripley goes to see Dylan, and then they're talking, and there's just subtle little back and forth music, and it builds up, and it's just perfect. So
I don't want to say I don't like the score. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it works in this film as well as it should. It feels such like a departure, which maybe is a good thing. I don't need everything to be the same.
Yeah.
Feed me the same thing over and over again. Kong Skull Island, Kong Skull Island. Things I like about Alien 3. I like the idea of a dog alien, the theatrical cut. I think that's really cool because up until then they had never really explored what would happen if a xenomorph was birthed from something other than a human.
Yeah.
So the idea of this thing can change its body chemistry based off of whatever it's birthed from completely changes the entire universe.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great idea because it expands the universe. It gives you more ideas like, what if this thing was birthed from a horse? Or what if it was birthed from a bird? Could it fly? So that's really cool. I love that. There's a great line in the beginning where Ripley has already shaved her head. She's walking into the lunchroom. She's standing in front of Charles S. Dutton. And he's like,
Yeah, well, you don't want to know me, lady. I'm a murderer and rapist of women.
Really? Well, I guess I must make you nervous.
oh, fuck. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what Ripley would do. She wouldn't be like, oh, I'll go sit over there.
Yeah.
She'd be like, oh, I must make you nervous. I'm going to sit right in front of you, bitch. And I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. I also like the scene where the inmates, this is going to sound wrong, I like when the inmates attempt to rape Ripley. Not because of that, but I love the editing, I love the direction, and I love how she fucking punches the guy in the face and there's like a lightning storm or something going on in the background. It's really cool. I like that scene where she fights back. Of course, Charles S. Dutton comes in there and helps.
Fucking
what does he say? Like, I gotta give some. What does he say? Really quick.
He says, "I gotta re-educate some of the brothers."
Right.
Oh,
That's
fuck!
right.
And he has this like lead pipe with like brain matter on it.
It's really cool. There is brain matter. I remember seeing that. Like, is that brain?
I think it is.
I think he might have just murdered someone.
I don't know. We don't know.
I think he killed someone.
We'll have to wait for the 4K, I guess.
Yeah, right. Let me ask you a question. When I watch Alien 3, the xenomorph shit feels tacked on to me. It just feels like a different movie. Do you have that experience?
I don't know. For two reasons. One, Charles S. Dutton said in an interview, it's not actually the film, the story. It's not so much like an alien or a monster or a horror film. It's more like a film about the prison and the prisoners, and then like a xenomorph is there to pull the rug out from Ripley. That's what this whole movie's about. Like, Ripley's in despair, and every time she has something positive, she sleeps with Charles Dance. Boom!
Which also felt weird to me.
I don't know. I accept it because here's this chick. She's been fucked over and she has nothing, and she has to feel something. Like, if you go through loss, you want to attach yourself to somebody or something, get some love or some kind of affection out of it.
See, what you're saying there I'm fine with that. I get what you're saying from a human perspective. I'm just saying from the filmmaking perspective, it feels abrupt. You don't understand the passage of time except for the fact that she says, I've been here a while. And then you get, okay, she's feeling horny, basically. And it's not that what you're saying is wrong. Like, I can see anybody who's on a prison planet and suddenly you've been there for who knows how long and you're the only woman and suddenly there's a guy who's being nice to you. You know, I don't know what's going to happen to me, so might as well have some sex, I guess. But I get from a human perspective why someone would do that. It's just that from the movie perspective, it feels like she arrives, she finds out everyone's dead, she shaves her head, and now she's banging a guy.
So it happens too quick for you?
Yes, too abrupt. I also have issues with the writing here. For one, this movie randomly makes Ripley a lieutenant. She was never a lieutenant before. She was a warrant officer in Alien. Then in Aliens, she gets her license completely revoked, and the only way she can get it back is by going to LV-426 with them. And then after that, she's in cryosleep, and then she wakes up in Alien 3, and suddenly she's a lieutenant. So, again, what you said, there are so many cooks in the kitchen here. This is just an oversight. This is just people not knowing or not even caring to get that small detail right. No, does it have much of an impact on the story? No, in the long run. But it's just small details like that throughout that bug me. There's another moment where Dylan, Charles S. Dutton, is basically like looking at Ripley after a lot of people are dead. And it's like, you know, you should make, how about you? Why don't you lead us?
Hey, sister, what about you? You're an officer. How about showing us a little leadership?
And then, like 10 minutes later, he starts questioning her leadership and whether or not he should follow her or her choices are adequate. And I'm like, you just told everyone that she should lead, and now you're instantly questioning her.
You got something better to do?
Why should we put our ass on the line for you?
Your ass is already on the line.
There are so many things like that in the screenplay that really bug me. One of the biggest ones for me is the fact that there's an egg on the ship in the beginning. And even Fincher himself said back in the 90s, like in various interviews, you just have to accept it for the movie to work. How did an egg get on their ship? Did the queen hide it there? But she didn't, because she was underneath the ship. And then she came out and then she died. So the idea of an egg being on the ship is literally just, we have to have an alien somehow. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. There's another scene where Dylan pretends that he's going to kill Ripley with an axe. She's like holding some bars or something, and he just kind of like milks every last minute of suspense and then smacks the bar next to her head. And like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, then why'd you just do that? That was purely for the audience.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like, when you look at it from like a perspective of like, these are two people in a room. If he's not going to kill her, he just wouldn't do it. They had this big elongated suspense sequence for the audience to be like, oh, is Ripley going to die? Even though you know she's not.
Well, maybe he internally was thinking about it. And then
maybe.
Like, fuck it. And then he wanted to release some anger.
Maybe, but to me, that's just like a justification for what you, like, you see. I see a moment that's stupid. You can take it and say, here's why it works for me. But for myself, not so much. I think the studio did a really shitty job marketing this. We already talked about the teaser that said it was going to be on Earth, which it wasn't. All the posters say like 3 times the terror, 3 times the suspense, and it's like, it's not really a terrifying suspense movie. It's more of like a dark kind of character movie.
Yeah, it is.
That has an alien in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason a lot of people were disappointed, because poor marketing. They try to make it seem like it's going to be... Because you have Alien, which is so suspenseful, and then you have Aliens, which is like an action movie.
Yeah.
They're like, which crowd do we market this to? Mm-hmm. How, you know, like, which audience are we going for now?
They kind of marketed towards the Aliens crowd. Was more like an alien film.
Right, exactly. Since I'm getting into all my negatives now, I think, I think the special effects are shit. I think they're awful. I think they're the worst in the entire 4 films. Which is sad, because this is newer than Alien and Aliens. There are shots of the dog alien running on the ceiling that, I mean, the color correction, the timing, the speed of it, everything is just off. There are shots of satellites where you can see the black outline around it that just, they did not mesh at all with the background. For some reason, when I went back and watched Alien and Aliens, they still hold up perfectly in regards to effects. There isn't a single shot that I look at and go, eh.
Maybe when she puts the android's head, that doesn't only one that...
There's one cut in Alien, yes, where you're playing with an android head that's fake, and then it cuts to his real head. They should have cut away
that's
to
only
Sigourney,
flaw,
and then cut back to Ian Holmes' real head. I agree with you on that. But in regards to special, like, visual effects, they still hold up. Alien 3, no. You have to agree with me on this one, that the Alien 3 has the worst visual effects.
I'm glad you say something about special effects. I'm going to say why they kind of look baddish.
Okay.
If you want to fix them, turn on your soap opera option on your TV. It looks fucking great.
Yeah, soap opera.
But what happened was, actually, ILM was going to do this film, and I forget which draft of the screenplay, but they did like concept art, I think, too. I think it might have been for Vincent Ward's. But they said no to ILM Fox, and they went with somebody else. I forget their name. And, man, they went a lot of old school shit. Why does the alien look jerky? They used a puppet, and they threw it with rods on a blue screen. They went really old school. They had matte painters.
Which is actually how David Fincher got started.
Yes.
He worked on Temple of Doom and Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, he was an ILM guy, and then he went into directing stuff. But, so he had the special effects background. He was very meticulous of how blood looked and shit in Alien 3. But they used matte paintings, and they had, like, the satellite, like, as a miniature, and then they had it on a blue screen, and then they would put, like, not CG, because there's only one CG shot. Might as well skip towards this. There's only one real computer-generated image. It was the 1 second of, like, the alien moving its skull when the water came on it and it started cracking. That's the only
digital.
Yeah, that's the only digital.
Fully digital shot.
Besides that, everything's like old school and stuff. And you have to remember, this is I think a year before Jurassic Park, so that changed fucking everything.
Yeah,
if it came out a year after, or they knew about, or they worked with ILM, or had ILM doing the special effects, it probably would look fucking amazing.
The thing is, I'm not comparing it even to the movies of the early 90s. I'm comparing it to the two Alien that came before that. There's even a shot, like the big iconic scene where Ripley has her face to the wall and the alien comes up next to her. Close-up looks great. The wide shot of it approaching, though, looks like shit.
Yeah, I think that was a puppet.
Shit. I mean, bad. When I watched the two before it, I don't have that disconnect. And when I watch Alien 3, there's so many scenes where I'm like, oh, that looks bad. And it just takes me out of the experience when I'm watching it. Even the big sacrifice scene in the theatrical, when she's, like, going back, and then it's all, like, low shutter frame rate, and the alien's like,
Yeah, that was reshot on blue screen.
They totally believe you.
Yeah, they custom.
It looks like it.
They custom made a seat for her. You also have to remember Fox not having the fucking money enough to put money into this.
It's true. Here's the thing. Everything you're saying, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand why it happened like this.
Yeah.
It's still like that though. So I can't justify it because the studio was dumb. Like, they're dumb. They made bad choices. I think you and I can both agree on that. I also think this movie overuses the POV shot. There are so many sequences towards the end where they're running through the corridors trying to lead the alien to this place where they can trap it. And almost every single one is a POV shot of like this really squished thing of the alien going up and around. I'm fine with it a few times, but it's such a cheap effect. I can't believe that Fincher did that. I can't believe that the entire feel of the alien at the end is just one POV over and over again. There are like 10 or 15 of the exact same type of shot over and over again. I feel like after a while it just kind of, okay, yeah, the alien's coming. Because there's only so much you can do with a POV. Mm-hmm. You can't have the camera eat someone. So every time it cuts back to a POV, it's just going to be the guy following him, and the frame is all squished, and it's very ugly looking. I wish they had made the xenomorph vision be cooler than just a squished frame, like something like what they did with Predator or something. Just an idea of the xenomorph vision being just looking better than just a POV shot that's all fucked up and weird looking.
I can understand your point. I'd really like it, but it might tie into, again, the budget. Maybe
Sure.
Fincher wanted to have more shots of the fucking runner just coming, but kind of looks like shit. Just go with the point of view safe.
At the same time, I can see that too, because we can only pull off so many of these effects, and even the ones we are pulling off aren't like as convincing probably as he wanted, since as you said, he's very meticulous.
Yeah.
So I don't think he probably looks back on the effects of Alien 3 and smiles. Yeah. He probably wishes they were better.
Oh, absolutely.
So I guess maybe it was the lesser of two evils. Like, do we use this or do we use the POV shot?
Yeah.
Before we get into the assembly cut, I want to sum up my thoughts on the theatrical. I like what they were going for. There are certain things I love about this movie. Sigourney Weaver is great in the film. I like the idea of it being on this really isolated location. Again, going back to basics, no guns. Everyone's terrified of this creature. It's just that I don't feel the suspense from the creature in this movie, unfortunately. I don't feel that tension because the pacing is so off for myself when I watch this. It goes from lighthearted, let's have sex with this guy, to, oh shit, he just died, to teaming up with the prisoners, to a attempted rape scene, to a dog chest burst. It's just so much is happening that when they finally decide to lead this alien into a place and trap it, I just feel like a studio stepped in and said, we need to have an alien movie right now. And Fincher was trying to make a more human film.
Yeah.
And when I watch Alien 3, it just doesn't work for me. I'm going to grade the theatrical. I'm going to give the theatrical cut of Alien 3 a C.
Well, we're going to talk about the assembly, but the theatrical cut, it's like a completely different film. It cuts a lot of stuff down. It's got a different tone. I really like some of the alternate stuff. I kind of appreciate, I thought it was corny as shit, the Queen chest burster coming up at it. I kind of understand it. We'll get to this in a second. But I'll give it actually 8.5 out of 10 because before I actually give it a 5. But rewatching it as an adult now, I'll give it 8.5. But I still prefer the assembly cut.
Okay, yeah, and as do I. So let's get into that. The assembly cut, obviously, you can't call it the director's cut. A lot of people do.
Yeah, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't, because Fincher had nothing to do with this movie and wants nothing to do with it. So, and there is no director's cut. And he has said this. Yeah. Because his vision was never fully filmed. Because they just didn't let him. So there will never be a real David Fincher version.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. Perhaps this work print idea that you talked about with the 3 hours and the more blood exists, but the idea of his vision being filmed is just, it's never going to happen. So we have the assembly cut. We have about, 20, 25 minutes worth of extra scenes now?
Yeah, it's at 2:24, and the theatrical is 1:54.
Right, so a lot of room there to improve things. But whenever you have a movie that has fundamental flaws, sometimes adding and just padding on extra scenes can really do nothing to help the situation unless there are certain things that can be improved or changed. Gratefully, when I watched the assembly cut, right out of the bat, the opening's better.
Oh, yeah.
I talked about the really shitty ADR of the guy in the background in the theatrical. It's gonna be 40 below soon, you gotta get out of here! And it's like zooming in on his face. I was like, oh! In the assembly cut, they changed it to a overhead shot.
Hey, Frank, can we hurry this up? It's gonna be 40 below in 5 minutes.
And you hear the exact same audio in the distance. And I'm like, perfect! Because that's what that audio sounds like. It doesn't sound like close-up audio. It sounds like background audio. So the idea of changing that entire shot to be overhead, Ripley washing up on shore, all dirty and filthy, and the lice, really good. Yeah. Now there's one specific thing I love about the lice. Now this could have been, this might just be me attributing something to it, but the idea of the shot in the theatrical where the dog has the blanket taken out from him and it's covered in lice, and the dog has a xenomorph in him. Ripley also has a xenomorph in her, and she's also covered in lice. So I'm wondering if they are connecting the two things, that the lice are more attracted to this thing because there's some sort of weird thing in there.
Maybe.
But unfortunately, the assembly cut removes the dog part and changes it to an ox.
I think the ox has some lice, though.
Okay. So I wonder if that's what Fincher was trying to hint at. The idea that all of these lice have now swarmed over Ripley because there's some sort of infestation in her, just like they swarmed all over the dog.
Yeah. I never thought about that.
Yeah. I made you think of an Alien 3 thing you didn't think of.
I've got to look more intricate details. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. The pacing, like, I do appreciate the alternative, the dog, even though you don't like the ADR. But the pacing is so beautiful when Clemens discovers her and brings her into, that's David Fincher's actual vision of bringing Ripley in and laying her down, and we're brought into the prison planet and we're discovering this. And also, I guess, to talk about the difference of the tones between the theatrical and the assembly, they make our first cut between the theatrical and the assembly, and it's the biggest difference between the two films. The theatrical is more of like a very, like, if you thought the assembly or Alien 3 was dark, the theatrical is the darkest they can get. And there's more of a rapey vibe that you get from the theatrical.
Yeah.
And less hope from the theatrical than you get from the assembly cut. Because the assembly cut has Dylan giving these speeches, including the very first one where, give us strength, O Lord, to endure.
Yeah.
But that's cut in the theatrical. Almost every single, I think I count them all up, almost every single positive, godlike speech that Dylan gives in the assembly cut is fucking wiped out in the theatrical.
Which makes it a lot more somber and kind of cynical.
Yes.
Assembly cut has like a semblance of hope.
That's probably why I like the assembly cut so much, because it's about like redemption, and that's why the prisoners are there, because they can make their sacrifices to go to heaven, and that's not really like kind of looked after here in the theatrical. There's even the exchange we talked about earlier with Dylan and Ripley. I must make you nervous. So in the theatrical cut, they cut at like this kind of foreshadowing rape that's will happen, and then in the assembly cut, there's an extra line that she says, "Well, what are you waiting for?" And then you think he's going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to rape you," but he goes, ha, 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 ha. He looks around and then he goes, "We're waiting for God to return and raise his servants to redemption." I was like, "Oh, that's fucking beautiful."
That is cool because it subverts expectations. You know,
That too.
You go in expecting a very specific thing when one woman is at a fully male penal colony. And yeah, you get that scene, but it's very brief. It's actually completely different from that because everyone is so like religious.
Yeah, I love the directing of that too. Just like you have all the prisoners, like what's going to go on? The cutting, I love it.
They set up a lot more drama with the prisoners in the assembly cut.
Oh yeah,
there's entire sequences with the one dude who's like in the hospital bed. None of that was in the theatrical.
Oh no, sad.
And so they give more of a backstory there. There's an extra scene in like the lunchroom scene at the beginning where he's like addressing the people.
I love it.
There's an explanation for why everyone randomly ends up in the furnace.
Yes.
They explain that. And so what the assembly cut does better for me is it bridges the gap between certain moments that the theatrical just didn't have. It fills in some of those gaps. It creates a better fleshed out world. Some of the same problems are still there for me. The visual effects haven't really been improved. There's one new shot of the ox alien kind of like scurrying away that I think looks pretty badass actually. And I do like the idea of the ox instead of the dog because it just makes it seem more terrifying. Because you got this little cute dog in Alien 3, like the theatrical, and it's like, oh, what's this thing going to be? Like a cute little xenomorph? An ox alien, though, that's a little scarier. Like, you're like, okay, this thing's going to be like a giant, you know, thing, like a big-ass fucking xenomorph.
Yeah. I do like having the dog now, even though I don't want to see the dog.
Yeah.
I do understand people's concerns with saying, oh, it's a runner. It's supposed to be a dog runner instead of an ox, which is slow.
True.
However, there is a religious significance for the ox. And the ox was included as Fincher's original plan, and they went to the dog.
Oh, shit. I know exactly where you're going with this.
Okay, yeah. Well, then, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But the ox in early ancient Israel was known as the most important animal that you could own. And if a man lost his ox, it would be like losing, or if it died, it would be like losing that man's whole livelihood and everything he's worked for. So the ox coming out of the alien is fucking perfect because everything and anything Ripley has known for the past how many experiences and adventures has been this fucking xenomorph. And I was like, I never thought about that.
That's true. There is some symbolism there. And I think it's just hard for myself when I watch movies that I don't like to try to justify it with things like that. Because like I could look into that and be like, oh, wow, like I see what he's going for, or is he going for that? Is it just an ox because it was there, or is there religious symbolism? You might entirely be right because there is a lot of religious subtext to this movie with the characters at the prison all trying to find God despite the fact that they're, you know, rapists and everything.
Yeah.
And so you're probably right actually, which is maybe perhaps the reason it was restored in the assembly cut because it was something he really wanted to be in there.
Yeah.
Overall, the assembly cut is an improved film. Not so much more. The fundamental flaws of the movie are still there for me. I do like the idea of Ripley sacrificing herself and you don't get like the over-the-top alien xenomorph thing that I'm sure some studio head went, how can you talk about an alien being in her without ever seeing it burst out of her? And then so they had to do that. Because it leaves it more ambiguous. Like, could she have survived? Could she have made it back? Could this operation have happened? Could they have saved her in time? Because you don't see it pop out. In the theatrical, you see it pop out and you're like, no, she's fucked. Like even if she said yes and they went back to the med bay, it would have popped out.
Yeah.
Within a minute or two. But in this, without it coming out of her, it improves it. It makes her sacrifice mean more because it still leaves open that door that she could have maybe survived the operation long enough, and you never see the thing come out. So.
Yeah, that's probably why he included it originally, because that was supposed to be his ending too, of course. But I do see, and I fucking hated it. I thought it was so corny. The queen coming out, and then she's holding it. I was like, that's fucking lame.
Yeah.
But rewatching it, I was like, wow, that's actually kind of beautiful because this thing is fucking screaming. Oh, you gotta think here.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll turn on my brain.
So it's screaming, and I thought it was corny too. It was screaming, and then she's holding it, And she's going down. She's like, no, bitch, this is it. Like, and that's it. And that's the thing with Fincher for the end of this film. Like, there's not going to be another one after this, even though there is.
Of course. Ripley clone.
Like, there's like, cut. There's like fucking door slamming. That's it. Like, Fincher fucking slammed the door. That is the end of the film. So I thought maybe adding that in and, no, bitch, this is it. Or this is it. And then that's it instead of her doing the... I still like it, the little
Sure. I mean, she's gone, man. The lava's...
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know how the fuck that returned for the fourth film, but I'll let you.
They say something about they found some blood and a specimen of blood. Anyway, yeah. There's just little gripes I have with Alien 3, and even in the assembly cut, that keep me from loving this movie like I wish I could. So overall, I'm going to give the assembly cut of Alien 3 a C+. In regards to this work print, do you have something you would like to say, something you would love to happen, something that would just make your entire Alien fandom perfect?
Yes. Hi, Mr. Fincher, big fan of yours. It pretty much goes, not kidding, not trying to suck your dick. Spielberg, Fincher, okay? There are so many fans of yours and so many fans of Alien 3. I know life is very short, my friend, and I personally try not to hold any grudges against anybody. And you worked with Fox for Fight Club, you released, distributed Fox, and then Gone Girl, which is fucking amazing for Fox. I know you couldn't get your way, and I know you said in a quote that if you had to release an Alien 3 director's cut, you had to reshoot the whole thing. That'd be great to do. But I would fucking go crazy, and all of your fans, yes, Alien 3 is very hated, but a lot of more people are getting more love to this film and actually love it. Especially myself. This is my favorite movie, and I would fucking love to see some like Blu-ray or 4K release of this film. Call it the compromise director's cut. Call it director's cut with a little asterisk.
Call it, here you go, Matt. Cut.
That'd be great. I like to be a part of the editing process.
Yeah, right.
Look,
audio commentary with David Fincher and Matt.
I do a podcast with David Fincher.
Yeah, oh my god, that'd be incredible.
My goodness, my friend, there's so many people who want it, and we would fucking love to see you release a work print or a version.
I'd buy it in a split second.
I'd buy like fucking 3.
I'd buy it in a split second and I'd watch it, and my hopes is that it would be better.
Not seeing the work print, seeing the assembly cut, which is closest to your vision, I'll give it pretty much like a 9.5, a 10. I don't fucking care. I love it. It's in my top.
I know you love it, man.
It's in my top 10 films. I think it might be like number 5. And you know what else is, David, if you're watching, you know what else is in my top 10? The Game. Fucking love The Game.
I would love to see that work print as well. Please release it. That'd be amazing.
You just gotta laugh, David. You just gotta laugh.
Yeah, we want to see it. I don't love this movie. I don't hate it. I think it's a mixed bag of things. We've gone over this before. But that's something I wanted to do for you guys. I don't often have people on where we just completely disagree on a movie. And I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, you don't agree with me? Well, fuck you. Anyway, no, I appreciate what they were trying to do with this movie. But in the long run, for me, it didn't work. But I appreciate that you came on. Thank you very much, guys. Definitely check out Matt's channel. Tons of amazing content. He's doing a lot more movie stuff now. And I think that's something you're appreciating and enjoying.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward to my review of Alien Resurrection. That is going to be a hilariosity review. So right off the bat, I think I just told you how I feel about it. Yeah. Look forward to that, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.